Hello everyone, Jocelyn here, also known as Coco Paleo, and I am going to spend some time today sharing with you how we are using bullet journals this year for our homeschool logs. I made a video similar to this about a year ago and used the books throughout the year and learned a lot in the process. I'll put a link to last year's video in the comments. However, this year, I'm going to show you some slight changes we made based on experience and also just give you some information on the curriculum and choices we're making this year. So let's get started. This year, I chose books for my kids based on their requests for color. My one son wanted black and my other asked for golden. Now, if you've seen my other videos, you know that I'm a big fan of Dingbats journals. The reason for that is the paper quality is fantastic. This is a Leuchtturm and it's golden. Dingbats does not make a golden one, so that's the reason I went with this journal for my younger son, and he's very happy with the color. I'll show you once we get into it the difference in paper quality, and you'll be able to see what I mean. So, I'm going to skip the first page because that shows some personal information that you don't need to see on YouTube, but that's where I keep my son's name, his email address, and our phone number. One difference between the Dingbats notebook and the Leuchtturm notebook, aside from paper quality, is that the Dingbats notebook doesn't have numbers on the pages and it doesn't have an index provided for you, whereas the Leuchtturm has a space in the beginning where you can put that. For me, not a big deal. As you can see, I just make my own index. There are numbers in the bottom corner of the page throughout the Leuchtturm, and I put my own numbers in the bottom corner of the pages for the Dingbats. You'll see here that on the first page, I list page numbers that correspond to what can be found on that page: attendance log, field trips, etc. As I turn the page, you'll see our attendance log. We started on July 1st. The way that I do this is I just write out the month. Every day that we do school, specifically every day that we learn something, working from a book, going on a field trip, etc., I circle that date. When I get to the end of the month, I list which days those were. So day 1 through 24 happened in the month of July. Just to give you an idea of paper quality, you can see a little bit of ghosting from the opposite side through here, but there's no bleed through, and it's not enough to be at all distracting. In contrast, the ghosting is more pronounced in the Leuchtturm. I'll show you them side by side. So you can see it through the Leuchtturm pages more than through the Dingbat pages. After I make my way through the calendar pages of the book, the first thing I list is field trips. Now, this is something I learned from last year. We went on a lot of field trips, and I had field trips listed somewhere in the middle. The problem was when I had to go back and find it to record our field trips, I had to search for it a little bit. This is something that I learned and something that I changed for this year. Field trips is the very first thing. That way I can find it easily right after the calendar pages. The next thing in each book is their fiction reading list. This is another thing I changed from last year. Sometimes they read storybooks that are fiction. Sometimes my kids read books that expand upon whatever we're learning in science or history. In other words, nonfiction. I wanted to keep those two things separate. So here is my son's fiction reading list so far. You can see that he has read a few books. He's working on Redwall right now, but also Cricket magazines have some shorter stories in them. As we go throughout the year, there may be other things that are not chapter books, but good reading material that we include on this list. Here are some things that he has read in terms of nonfiction. These both happen to be history related. Family reading. This is something new that I added this year. These are books that I have read out loud to my kids. And I felt it was important to include this because it's reading time, it's discussion time, it's learning time, and I also enjoy keeping track of what we've read together. Family reading time is really important to us. Bible. This is the next subject that I list. And the first book that you'll see here, it's in my other son's book also. It's called Exploring the Bible. I'll show you the cover for that book now. They've both started working on this, and it's really well designed for kids. I would say ages 7 or 8 through, a young teenager. It says it's a Bible reading plan for kids. It goes through the entire Bible, going through different books where there are places to list your prayer requests. There's an overview of whatever verse is being discussed for that week. There's a daily log where there are verses listed and questions asked, so they just write their answers in here. And then at the end of the week, it says exploring with others, and there's a place to list what you learned about and talked about in church. I have my own book where I keep my sermon notes, and now my kids have theirs. Next, we have history and geography. I'm going a little lighter on writing this year for history and geography, mostly because we're doing a few other writing intensive things. So this year, it's more along the lines of reading and discussion, etc. We started a different history curriculum at the beginning of the year last year, and to be honest, got halfway through the year and didn't really care for it. We switched over to these books, A History of U.S., this is the second book in the series. Again, lots of good information on here, and we basically use these as a springboard. So whatever we happen to be talking about or learning about, we'll follow up with YouTube videos, we'll follow up with books from the library. My boys each read a book about John Smith in the last month, just to kind of reinforce what we were learning about in our history books. So as I said, we're not doing a lot of writing this year, it's just the way I chose to design it, but a lot of reading, a lot of discussion. Next we have science. It took me a while to decide on science this year. As you can see, I've got a lot of things listed. We're sort of doing a combination of two different curriculums, but the one that I really am excited about, and my kids are excited about too, is Noeo Science. We're doing chemistry too. And you'll see a list of books underneath this. These are books that are incorporated with the Noeo curriculum. The actual book that organizes this curriculum seemed very unassuming. It's not a very large book, and it's not a very fancy one. However, on each week, it lists which of these books from the list you're supposed to reference, and which pages you're supposed to do. It lists your supply list and what you need to do on each day. My kids have absolutely loved this. It keeps things fresh. There are QR codes for videos that you can link from the Usborne books. There are experiments that are very easy to do at home. And then Noeo on their website provides lab sheets where you can record the results of what you learned and draw pictures and describe it. They're each keeping a notebook, and it's been wonderful for them. You'll see at the bottom of the page, this is where I list some of the YouTube videos that we've watched to reinforce what we've learned in our books. Math, keeping it pretty simple on this page. My kids do some Prodigy math online. It's an online game where they do math and it furthers them through different quests. Additionally, they're using teaching textbooks to help move them through some regular curriculum, learning new concepts, etc. Language arts. My older son in particular is using Touch Type Read and Spell. It's a typing curriculum and spelling curriculum in one. And both of my kids are going through the Student Writing Intensive A for the Institute for Excellence in Writing. Physical education. This is a running list. I keep a specific log on the daily things about what they do on each day, but these are just some things that they've done so far that involve physical activity. We'll go on some hikes. They do some strength training things. Both of my kids are in Scouts, and there are physical activities, exercise activities incorporated through Scouting. So all of that eventually goes on this list. Music and fine arts. Both of my kids do piano lessons. And my younger son takes tap lessons. There's a podcast called Composer's Datebook. Sometimes we listen to that and discuss what we learned. They're very brief. Concert attendance. My husband and I are both professional musicians, so the kids go to a lot of concerts. And I need to I'm planning on making a list, probably on the opposite side of this page, of concerts that they attend through the year. Civics. Boy Scout activities are a big part of civics. We also use iCivics, the website. Fantastic website for learning things like how our government works. And we watch CNN 10 when the podcast is running throughout the school year. All of those things work together to make up our civics curriculum for the year. Fire safety. I don't have anything written here yet this year, but we always do a combination of watching videos, coming up with a layout of our house so we know how to escape in the event of an emergency, and the kids typically do some fire safety instruction through their scouting activities. Miscellaneous. I don't exactly know what I'm going to put on this page, but at varying points during the year, I always find myself asking, which category am I going to put this in? It's educational, they learned from it. Where am I going to place this? Daily chores is one of them, whether it's pulling weeds, whether it's emptying the dishwasher. These are important things to learn how to do. I start every month with the name of the month and daily log written, and you'll see here that for the various days, I list which subjects they've gone through and which pages they've read, which chapters we've covered, etc. I'm keeping things material-wise fairly minimalist this year. Aside from our notebooks, I really only use 2 pens. One is this fine point pen that writes in black ink, and this, which is a Crayola Super Tip. I use this light gray color to underline the days. It just helps to organize it, make it pop a little bit so I can keep track of the date and which day of our school year we're on. Pennsylvania requires 180 days of school for the school year. We always go far beyond that. And you see that for each day, I just record what the date is and what day of our school year it is. So that's all I have for you for today. I hope this has been helpful. This is not meant to be a how-to on what you need to do to be legal. I probably go beyond what a lot of people do when it comes to recording our daily activities, our daily log. However, I like the accountability. Personally, it helps me to know I need to write down what we've done. I need to keep track of what they're doing, especially because I'm a working mom. I work outside the home. I teach college classes. Being on top of things helps me to know that my kids are learning what they're supposed to be learning. We're getting through some great material. And I also enjoy later on just looking through the books and seeing all that we've learned for the year. Thanks for watching. And if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the comments.